Can I ask everybody to take a seat in this splendid hall? Everybody can take a seat. I think there are enough chairs. It will work. Maybe we can dim the lights a little bit. Okay, good evening. I'm David Burke. I'm the Global Director for Organizational Development with the World Scout Bureau. And I truly hope you all had an exciting Congress with many opportunities to share ideas, experience in the field of youth program, adult resources, education, trends in society, scouting. Now, of course, it's very nice that we can sit here together for 3 days and discuss on all these things. But the real impact lies, of course, in how we take this work forward. How do we take this work towards our national scout organizations? How do we impact our local units in the field? I talked yesterday evening in a nice bar here in Hong Kong with a gentleman from a national scout organization, and he told me that being at the Congress for him had led him to the conclusion that his association was a bit too focused on management, and he felt that their training framework, when he listened to all the examples he heard from around the world of other NSOs, that their training framework is actually quite too rigid. So he told me, like, for me, the Congress, like, it learned me that I should start a discussion in my organization on where do we focus the most of our efforts on the national level, and we should really, like, look again into the training system. And he told me of a number of other NSOs who had a real good training framework. So that's an example of what the Congress can and will do. Now, of course, it's only one example. So the trick is, how do we capture what we do all together? How do we capture overall outcomes, conclusions, impact? And more importantly, where do we go from here? How do we point the way forward? Because you might remember, or you might have read in the documents which came with the Congress in the bulletins, that one of the key reasons we set up this new world event was for you to consider the future of the educational aspect of this movement, and again, center it clearly as our core business. So, how will we do that? How will we try to capture all the outcomes, all the discussions, the key elements, and point a way forward? Now, as you know, the Congress is not a decision-making body, so we have a World Scout conference for that next summer. So obviously we didn't choose to start now a resolution session. So I'm sorry if I disappoint you now, but there will be no voting on resolutions. We also thought a declaration or something would not necessarily have much impact. So what did we do? We recruited across the world 10 committed and very diverse individuals. And you might have seen them during sessions and here in the plenary hall. They did not participate directly in the debates, so you might have thought, what are these guys actually doing here? They're actually quite silent. They observed. They looked at all the discussions. They looked at the items we agreed on, at the items which created much debate, and they tried to capture the essence. And they worked under the coaching of Karin Albach and Sasha Tulina until late every night to compile all those elements. And I can guarantee you it was really late. Last night, when I was having this discussion with the gentleman in the bar, I actually texted them, some of them, to ask to join me in the bar. That was around 1:30, and they said, no, we're still busy. So, to give you an idea, and you might have seen their results. You saw probably the sum up prezzies at those presentations, either taped on the wall in this building or on our website. So this is what you saw yesterday, and the day before yesterday is work in progress. By now we have day 1 and 2 fully completed. You can already view it on the website, and day 3 is currently being finalized. So, how will we bring these results to the final panel session? We have 3 objectives for the next hour. One is to present you the conclusions of the work of the rapporteurs of the Congress. Secondly, we will organize a little debate here, a panel, who will reflect on the key outcomes and discussions. And thirdly, we'll be giving a first indication of how we could go forward with this, where we go from here in education, with education in scouting. So practically, how will that go? I will shortly invite 4 rapporteurs here who will, on behalf of their whole team of 10, deliver to you a presentation with the key outcomes which are clustered around 4 themes. Each rapporteur will highlight one of those themes, which are globalization, communication, society, and education. After we look at these presentations, a panel debate with educational experts from within World Scouting will reflect and discuss these outcomes and the impact they could have on our movement. And then our Secretary General will in his message, will give some pointers on how we could forward, how we could take this work further on. So, here we go. We're ready for the final part of the Congress. So I'm very happy to introduce you to 4 representatives of one of the hardest working teams of this Congress. I present to you Ilyas Ismaili from Azerbaijan, Marina Rustan from Argentina, Captain Nelson Opani from Kenya, and Catarina Inverno from Portugal. Over to you.
Thank you, David. Dear brothers and sisters, I would like to start with globalization theme, which is now in trend not only within the Scout movement. During the Congress, the most important and the most discussed of globalization issues were first, mobility, second, diversity, third, complexity, fourth, interconnectivity, and the last, fast change. On the strengths of the outcomes of the Congress, we analyzed and found out the following points on which we think it is necessary to focus. First, mobility can affect the Scout movement by decreasing number of membership among youth and adults. Another point is that mobility is rapidly increasing sharing, which goes out of control. Second, diversity is narrowing or expanding our target group, which is advantage and disadvantage in the meantime, as well as changing young people's environment and perspectives on life. The third is complexity, together with interconnectivity and fast change. These are also causing the changing young people's environment and perspectives on life. Moreover, widening the intergenerational gap increased the risk of disconnect between the generations. Unfortunately, the risk of falling behind is also presented here, which can be the reason of the rapid decrease of the development of the movement worldwide. The discussions and efforts of the participants of the Congress helped us to formulate the actions in order to be able to respond to these trends. In the result, we highlighted the following actions. Youth program shall develop 21st century skills in order to remain relevant to young people's needs and wants. In other words, we shall be prepared for the challenges awaiting us in the 21st century. Trained adults and leaders shall be trained with the updated tools responding to the current needs. Promote diversity as an opportunity to increase the relevance of Scouting. In our understanding, diversity is the best tool for multinational and multicultural movement, calling for coexistence and tolerance as Scout movement. Continuous evaluation and frequent adaptation of youth program for activities offered, which helps to measure our impact. It is very important for us to understand the impact of the methods we use, implementing youth programs and running Scout activities. Increased flexibility of structures and processes. The world is changing. We shall consider the speed of the changes in order to adopt the flexible structure for the future generations. It will provide more opportunities to be concentrated on the main goal of the Scout movement, creating a better world. Be more open and forward-looking at the movement, which does not mean to forget the values and traditions we were saving for over a century, but to be more liberal organization capable to compete with other interests young people have today. Improve intergenerational dialogue and cooperation. Scouting is the better place for young people and adults to put into practice an intergenerational alliance. Thank you for attention.
Dear brothers and sisters in Scouting, I'm honored to share with you the outputs of the discussions that you had on the theme of communications. Firstly, the most important and the most discussed of communication trends were social media, to start, as a global network with many ways of communication. I heard from several of you that this is a very important thing that we should look today. New technologies, it's another trend. They are more available now in society, and most of the young people use it in their everyday lives. Information overload. People get wealth of information every minute by the increased access to media. Therefore, it is becoming more difficult to select relevant information and then be able to take action from it. This implicates new ways of communication that affect people's behavior and interrelations. This Congress is an example of what can social media achieve. There were participants online in this Congress, and most sessions were broadcasted online. Secondly, we have to ask ourselves, how do these trends in communication affect Scouting, and why should we care? Some of the answers can be that we can run the risk of being offline when everybody is online. Also, we can run the risk of Scouting message not being properly heard. And young people have challenges today in processing too much information because of the information overload. So, with these questions about how affects Scouting, we have to reflect on what should we do. This reflection seems to show some actions in order to be able to respond to these trends. And maybe they can be integrate new technologies into youth program and in management process of organization. Learning by doing also has to integrate technologies. And finally, we should go towards the concept of digital engagement. These are all the trends in the theme of communications. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to share with you briefly some of the key outcomes in relation to the key theme of our society. What kind of society do we want to build for our young people? During the 3 days of this Congress, some of the social trends that were identified, societal trends that were identified that we as a movement need to think about include marginalization of various sectors of society. the increasing rate of violence in and outside the movement, high rates of unemployment, especially among young people, social inequality, exponential growth opportunity for our movement, urbanization, which brings with it a wide range of challenges, and responding to secularization as our societies progress, particularly through modernization and rationalization. The increased awareness on the need and our responsibility as a movement to care for the environment. Having discussed this, you also reflected on how these trends affect Scouting and why we should take a keen note on these trends. It is very evident that these changes affect the well-being and prospects of the young people. And being a youth movement, we need to be responsive to this. They also increase competition for people and resources. Opportunities are limited, and we need to widen the options. These trends also affect our relevance and the way we deliver the Scout program. Our program and educational strategies should conform to the changing realities. Moving forward, what then do we need to do to address these issues? The Congress proposed the following as possible actions that we can take as a movement. One, we need to promote the recognition of Scouting among all stakeholders in society and show them that indeed Scouting works. We need to engage more with society to promote the social impact and active citizenship of our Scouts. We need to connect more with our societies and communicate our work so that the impact of all the Scouts across the world can be visible. Empowerment and responsibility ought to be core elements of our youth program. And from the presentations we had, this is best summarized by Dr. Khalid's point on building the platform. We also need to adopt our volunteering opportunities to more diverse population of adults. Scouting should make adults feel the need to support the movement, not only because of the value it adds to them, but for the opportunity it gives them to contribute to society. We need to be bold and break the bubble, openly discuss secularization, and take action on issues that affect our societies. Finally, and most critically, we need to reinforce the Scout method and focus on what really is our purpose as a movement. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Captain Nelson. Dear brothers and sisters, I have now the pleasure to present the outcomes in one of the core themes of this Congress, education. Through the discussions held, we could identify two main trends, and they are the rethinking of the formal education and the questioning inherited on values. On the first trend, we can see that education institutions that use formal education methods are starting to rethink their models. And this is mainly because school outcomes of young people are showing that formal education methods need to evolve. Traditional teaching methods are not as effective as they were, and so the need of rethinking the formal education is being raised. Because of this, there is eventually an approach to non-formal models. For the second trend, we can identify that values evolve with the society while the society advances. So this evolution implies that young people are living in a world of constant mutation. So their values might be questioned more often than it happened in the past. So how do these impact us? We found three main topics that could summarize this. The first one, formal and non-formal education are less differentiated. The second one, the Scout method is gaining credibility. And the third one, the Scouting values are also potentially questioned. Going a bit deeper on this, we can understand that for the first topic, formal and non-formal education methods are evolving, and it is important to consider where this evolution is taking us. Consider how the learning processes are evolving. Formal methods might start to become closer to non-formal ones. And we have experienced that non-formal methods are effective on the education of young people, and it's a good system in general. For the second topic, we can see that the world out there is realizing that methods used in Scouting are very effective when it comes to educating young people. And the Scout method is gaining more and more visibility on the non-Scout world. Because of this, we need to be aware of other products that might emerge and distort what the Scout movement offers to young people. The third topic says that the Scout values frame might be affected by the value system evolution in general. The core of Scouting is based on a value system that we try to put in practice with our Scout method, and we need to keep these in our minds. So given these trends and the reasons why they are important for Scouting, we identified four main responses to address the topics, and they are: to reinforce the Scout method and focus on the purpose of Scouting, to rethink the relationship with the formal education and cooperation models, to reinforce Scouting as a learning environment versus a teaching one, and to support young people on their direction in life and reinforcing of personal values. Explaining a bit more of each of one of these responses, we can say that by reinforcing the importance of the Scout method, we are showing the value and the importance it has to us. By using the Scout method, the purpose of Scouting is assured. And Baden-Powell's dream is put in practice concerning its main purposes. For the second response, we can also see that in Scouting we have an educational system and not a training one. These differences need to be emphasized and need to be present in our movement. We cannot deviate from the methods and means that give us such a unique framework. It is important to be open to other organizations that share some of our goals and concerns. And maybe we need to start looking more deeply into the way that we cooperate with the world in general. On the third response, we can say that young people learn relevant things in Scouting that they cannot easily find anywhere else. The practices we use need to be focused on the way young people learn. And the important factor of our educational proposal is the learning process and not the teaching one. For the fourth response and the last one of this, we can see that our Scouts have in our movement answers to several doubts they face in their lives. And we need to assure we are preparing our young people to face the different challenges they encounter. We need to give young people the confidence to live according to their personal values by being honest with their feelings and their thoughts. Thank you very much. And now I give it back to David.
Thank you, Marina, Nelson, Katerina, Ilias, as well as the full team of rapporteurs for all your work. And also a special thanks to Ana Rute, the International Commissioner for Portugal, who made all the nice drawings. And we will show you a flavor of how this was produced at the end of this session. A full summary of the work of the rapporteurs will be available, as we announced, in a condensed Prezi format tomorrow evening on our website, and the full-fledged version of the report will be available to all National Scout organizations at the latest at the 24th February 2014, 3 months from today. So, let's move to the second part, the panel debate, which will reflect and discuss on the presentations you just saw. And for this, I am delighted to introduce you to our moderator for tonight, my colleague and good friend, Joran Hegerdal, the Global Director for Scouting Development, and in that capacity, the most senior executive on educational matters in the World Scout Bureau. Joran, to you.
I have good afternoon or good evening, by the way. Nice to see you all. I have a fantastic panel here, the brightest persons on the podium, actually. We have if we start that, Dr. Mohammed Effendi from Singapore, Karin Albeck from the World Scout Committee, Mehdi Ben Khalil from Tunisia, Marina Cano from the World Scout Committee, Sara Rita Kattan, Youth Advisor to the World Scout Committee, and Stephen Peck from the UK. Now you create problems for me, because it says here that I should ask you to give them a warm applause. I consider that done. Thank you to the rapporteurs. It was really, really interesting to hear your first brief report. And we really look forward to the full report coming in exactly 3 months, the 23rd of February 2014. There are so many questions that popped up in our heads, and we will try now to have a small discussion, debate. I will ask the panel different questions, and they will debate between them. So I will start immediately and pick up a question that really has been in many of the keynote speeches, and that is about learning and teaching, and are we a learning organization, are we a teaching organization, are we an educational movement? So Steve Peck, can you please sort out this?
Yeah, it's very scary sitting here because there's a screen here with all the tweets coming up that you can see. So if I say something strange...
Can you turn off the tweet?
I think my comment about this would be if I had a concern about the debate about the teaching, learning, education, formal, non-formal debate that has gone on, is for me it's not a polarised debate. That all this range of styles have a place in Scouting. Instruction has a place in Scouting. Teaching has a place in Scouting. Empowerment, non-formal education has a place in Scouting. And in many countries, it is part of the formal education system. And I wouldn't like us to see this as a polarised debate. I'd like to see it as increasing the range of methods that are used in Scouting. What for me, though, is the priority. It's about priorities, and priority for me is helping young people to learn. The thing that struck me most from listening to the key speakers was that we're preparing young people to take a constructive place in a society that we can't possibly imagine. That actually, if we just train young people to do the things that we know and give them the knowledge we have, it's not enough, because they will live in a world that we know nothing about. We have to teach them to learn. We have to teach them to continue to develop. As adults, we have much to learn too from our young people. And that's why the youth empowerment and adults working together are very important ways of operating for the future. We can't do everything, but we can help young people and adults work together. One final comment before I hand over was that the rapporteurs referred to us being a multinational, multicultural organisation. I'd add one other thing, that we are also an intergenerational organisation, and that's a very powerful tool that we have to continue to use, that younger people and older people working together must benefit society and the world at large. And I'd like to see more of that in Scouting as we go forward.
Karin, do you want to comment on that?
Thank you, Joran. I'm afraid I'm going to make you disappointed because I'm not going to be debating Steve, because I can't but agree with what he has just said. But I'd like to build on it with a comment. Maybe looking at the learning teaching question from a little bit different perspective. For me, what strikes me about this question is especially a question about mindset. For me, it's maybe not so much about the methods we use, because I agree with Steve that all the different methods, I mean, be it more directive training, learning, etc., I mean, they all have their place. But I think what makes the difference is the mindset that we have as adult volunteers when we approach the learning or the education of our young people. Do we approach the situation with what is now best for this scout to learn a certain thing? It might be to instruct him directly. It might be to let him just go out and try, fail miserably, but at least he will learn. So do we look at it from his perspective, what's best for him or her? Or do we think, I mean, I know this activity, I've always done it this certain way, so I'm going to do it again. I mean, it takes a lot of effort to do things differently. So I think when we think about this question about learning versus training or methods that we use, I think the mindset is also something that is good to keep in mind.
Thank you, Karin. Dr. Effendi, you want to comment?
It's interesting that, Karen, you mentioned about mindset change. If you want to do things, you want to really ensure that there is a real change. It's fundamental that we have this mindset change. But to do that, are we prepared to really challenge the status quo? To what extent we as a leader, to what extent people in organizations are prepared to really challenge the basic assumptions? If you're not willing to do that, then I think there will only be just cosmetic change, but no real change. So I think to me that's fundamental. Real change only takes place if you're prepared to do that. And people are willing to be open to it without any criticism for that matter, because that's for the betterment of the organization.
Thank you.
Can I comment on that?
Yes, of course.
Well, there was a but Steve mentioned about intergenerational things, and I think there has been always a question about what is the role of adults in scouting, and I think it is the fundamental questions that we always have. But I think in this sense, well, Alex has been mentioning him as a dinosaur, and I'm a part of the dinosaurs, and maybe to fade out sometime. But I think adult also has an important role in scouting, and in my word, maybe adult is enabler of the youth. Adult is the enable the youth to make the dream come true, or make the mission come true. So without having the adult support, I think well, there will not be any mission accomplished, and there will not be any the citizens, good citizens in the society. So I think the role of adult in scouting is very important, and it was really affirmed in the rapporteur's the comment that I think the scout method is also the relevant to the society, and even we should enforce the existence of scout method. So one of the things is that I said that adult support is one of the key point. Maybe Alex disagree with me, but I think that is the very important point of the scouting.
Okay, thank you. Can I not completely, but a little bit change the focus and ask Sarah Rita, are we keeping scouts safe from harm?
Violence is happening in the world, and it's happening also in our movement. As we know, we try to avoid it by preventing it, but it is present in the scout method if we don't apply it thoroughly, for example. And the risks are there, and our responsibility as leaders is really to be sure, recognize the violence, see the light cases of abuse that are present in our movement, sometimes like bullying or different sorts of violence that are not very severe cases, but that have a big impact on children. And we have to study the traditions, the habits we have sometimes, to really rethink and reflect about all this, see the violence where it's happening, recognize it, react to it, and prevent it, actually. And that is the responsibility of all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I have a comment on that. I mean, we are never safe from harm. We are always under a risk of harm. The key element, I think, is that to have the courage to talk about, to speak about, to raise awareness about. I mean, harm is not only sexual harassment. Harm can be not giving attention to the scouts, not asking them for what they want, or proposing them something they dislike. I mean, the key point here is not to say if the scouts are really safe from harm, but to be always ready and open to accept discussing about without taboo, without any obstacles. I mean.
Thank you. Corin, there have been a lot of discussions in different groups about life skills and the kind of things. Are the life skills we deliver relevant for today's society?
Ooh, big question. I'm happy though that we're discussing this. It's for me the skills and attitudes that we educate our young people with that's really the key purpose and objective of everything that we do. So I think it's good that we're talking about them. Whether we are relevant or not today, maybe it's a little bit of a yes and no. At least listening to many of the keynote speeches, it appeared to me that we are in a situation where the sort of formal educational system overall is realizing that they maybe didn't get everything right, and maybe there is something, tricks or two that they could learn elsewhere, for example, from us. So for me, those presentations were a very positive encouragement and reaffirming that we are doing something right, and quite a bit actually in our fundamental methods of educating people. For example, I think Chris Lonsdale mentioned the importance of self-confidence, and that the best way to educate self-confidence is through physical challenges, which, I mean, I'm pretty sure that if you are scouts, you've encountered some physical challenges, for example. At the same time, though, I think it would be dangerous for us to just sit here and feel good about ourselves and say that, I mean, yes, we have a good method, and I mean, we're doing the right thing, check. Because, as we've also noted many times during the last couple of days, the world is changing, and it's changing very fast. So, sort of sitting back and relaxing too much, I think, is dangerous. We might be losing touch. So I do actually think that at this point in time, especially after this Congress, there is some work to be done to look, just to have a look at, I mean, reaffirming what are really the skills that young people need today, 10 years from now, and are we addressing those needs? Just to check. Maybe we are, but it might also be that we are not. I'm not sure that we are fully aware of that at this stage. And that, I think, both to improve our program, to enable us to improve, but also very importantly for, again, the purposes of recognition, which I think was also mentioned by the rapporteurs. Because if we don't know what we educate, how will we be able to tell anybody else about what we're doing?
Recognition has been an issue that has been discussed also on many levels and in many discussion groups. Mehdi, recognition.
Yes, recognition, it's a big issue, I agree. And I think there is two dimensions for this. First of all, it is not by chance that the Scout movement is here since more than 100 years. There is, for sure, good and relevant reasons. And I think that because we are really a good educational movement and not only organization. However, do the others, I mean by others, the elements of the different civil societies, the different stakeholders at all level, do they know and give the right value for what we are doing? I mean, sometimes I'm in meetings with some responsible or some well-placed friends. If they were scouts, or if they have friends who were scouts, then we say, yeah, it's good, it's okay, it's nice. But if they were not, for them it's a waste of time. We are playing, we are just thinking, etc. And I think it's mainly our fault. I mean, if we don't adapt our communication strategies to reach out to non-scouts and also adapt the messages. I mean, when you go to a newspaper or a big TV station and to say that we had a training with 500 participants, they don't really care about if it is a wood badge training. But if we say that we have gathered 500 young people and we have built capacities on this and that, then it becomes interesting for them. So, and I saw that in the report of the rapporteurs, it's very, very important to work on external communication. The second thing, and the second big field, I think, is also internal recognition. Do our scouts know what they are really gaining from scouting to their lives? Sometimes they don't do. Sometimes for them it's just a part of fun, to meet some friends, etc. But some of them are scouts really changing their lives, and I have an example that I will keep it until my death. It's I had a Cub Scout, and he had all the elements to become a very successful gangster. He was marginalized, he had all the elements, and thanks to scouting, and I met him a few months ago, he's actually graduated as an engineer, and he really say that it is thanks to scouting, because scout gave him a self-confidence, a space to express himself, etc. So I think, and I heard that in some sessions, maybe we should look for certifying or recognizing the competencies that we give through scouting to the young people, and this is also part of recognizing internally what we give for young people in our different societies.
Thank you. Another trend that has been discussed a lot is urbanization, the possibility to do scouting in urban cities. Dr. Effendi, can you do scouting in a concrete jungle?
Yeah, well, Singapore, in fact, is a good example of a concrete jungles. Now, can we do scouting without nature in actuality? To me, the scout methods, the 7 scout method, they are not cast in stones. Well, we have 7. We can have 10. So what? As long as the core purpose of scouting, the holistic development of scouting spiritually, socially, emotionally, some people call it spice, whatever it is, yeah, does not change. It matters not whether or not, to what extent, nature is a core component of the scout methods. A simple answer is, of course, to me, yes, we can do scouting without nature. We need to be realistic in the sense that most of us are living in the city. There are many research that have shown that in 10 years' time, 15 years' time, 70 to 80% of our population will live in the city. The setback, the unfortunate thing is that many cities are largely unprepared. Unprepared to build sufficient infrastructure, and therefore you find a lot of slums. We don't see that in Singapore, but in many developing countries, there are a lot of slums. So my question is that, how then can scouting continue to be relevant in this situation? Now, if you notice this morning, meditation, the Boy Scout of the Philippines, I think that's a good example where we are street children during the weekdays, but we are scouts. Now, this is where scouting will continue to become relevant. some of the social ills, some of the social problem you encounter in urbanization is violence, crimes, drugs, diseases. So how can scouting then fill in? Yeah? By using whatever methods. So not necessarily nature, but perhaps less emphasis. Yeah? So therefore, to me, personally speaking, yeah, I think you can do scouting without nature in actuality.
Thank you. Okay, I have had a good time. 3 good days, interesting discussions, met a lot of nice people, talked, discussed, learned, listened. But frankly speaking, will this affect the Scouts in Kristala, in my local little town where I come from? Or it's not even a town, it's a village. Will this come down to patrulltjädern, Steve?
He always catches me out. Will it make a difference? I think that's up to us. I think there are some very powerful people in this room who can make a difference locally. Many of us are involved in local scouting. Most of us are involved in national scouting in our own countries. And also some of us are involved in world scouting at many levels. And I think that's down to us. I've heard lots of really excellent ideas. I've heard lots of impassioned debates starting here. And of course we've only had 3 days. We've only had short sessions. We can only start the debates. It's up to us to ensure that those debates carry on, both at world level and national level and at local level. Many of the problems we've discussed don't have very clear and slick answers. They are not just about resolutions and voting. They're about actions. They're about changing things. And I think whether we make a difference from these 3 days depends on what action we as individuals take when we leave here.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you all the panelists. This will conclude our little discussion. Thank you to Mary, Sararita, Stephen, Mehendi, Karin and Effendi. Can you give them a round of applause? I now would like to ask our General Secretary, Scott Tier, to come on stage. Scott is going to speak about the plan for carrying forward the outcomes of the Congress to the next year's World Scout Conference in Slovenia and beyond. Thank you.
There. Testing 1, 2, 3. Hey, that's great. That's great. I got some helpers with me tonight. We're going to arrange some furniture. Be with us in just a minute. You sit here. Very good. This on? Yeah. I found 3 members of the Scout Association of Hong Kong that wanted to go into show business. You need to change seats with her. Remember the rules? They get to do what I tell them to do. This is kind of cool. Anyways, I told them if they want to be in show business, you got to start at the bottom and work your way up. So tonight we have a cue card holder. We have a wardrobe expert. Pretty cool, huh? And we have somebody in charge of lighting. Start for... why don't you tell us your name?
Edmund.
Louder.
Edmund.
Edmund?
Yeah.
And you really want to go into show business?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, you're the cue card guy. Don't drop those on the floor or we're going to be in real trouble. And your name?
Oh, Hello, I'm Shirley.
Shirley, you know, and I told Shirley earlier that was my mom's name, so I'm not going to forget her name. Hi, Mom. Do you want to say hi to your mom?
Hi.
There's cameras.
Oh.
Does I say hi, Mom?
Hi, Mom.
Yeah, very good. I'm going to give you a copy of my script in case he drops the cue cards and the floor messes everything up. Then I can get the script from you and we can read further. Is that okay?
Sure.
Great. And your name?
I'm Ensign.
Louder.
And I'm Ensign.
Ensign. Ensign wants to go in the show business too. And you're in charge of lighting, but what's a hat for?
Oh, that's a secret.
Well, it's to cut down. They told me there was too much glare. So we're going to wear and I want to make this very clear to everybody. My name is not Alex Wong. Alex. Brothers and sisters, those of you that are here in the audience tonight and those that are listening online through live stream, welcome. To the planning team, the host team, pay attention now. To the planning team, the host team, the rapporteurs, the facilitators, speakers, and guests, thank you. Thank you very much for all your energy, your enthusiasm, and your excellent contributions during this Congress. Discussions in the rooms, in the meeting rooms, as well as in the hallways, and as well as those discussions that have happened online, have certainly showcased the spirit of scouting. Presentations from our rapporteurs that you just heard from showcase the productivity of the Congress. The sheer quantity and quality and the variety of insights gathered here in just 3 days are absolutely incredible, and I mean absolutely incredible. I hope you're as pleased with this Congress as I am. To our host team, the Hong Kong Scout Association, seated here in front this evening, thank you for all the work you've done to support our near almost 500 participants that are here in your facility. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And on that note, I'm going to share a story. That note, I got to share a story about something that happened in Buenos Aires during the last World Scout Committee meeting. And Alex Wong is our Constitution's chairman. And Alex, we were having a discussion about the Congress and the attendance. And the report to the committee, as those on the committee remember, was pretty positive. And Alex says, I don't think that's right. Our goal was to have 350 participants, and we thought we were going to reach that goal and maybe even surpass it. And Alex kept saying, I don't think that's right. I think you're going to have maybe 300, maybe less than 300. It's going to be embarrassing if you have less than 300. We're going to have this big meeting room, and it's only going to be half full. So I took a little felt pen. I walked up behind Alex, put my hands on his shoulders, and I drew a little smiley face in the back of his head. Because I'm Secretary General, and I can do things like that. It's kind of cool. So I drew a little smiley face in the back of his head, and I said, Alex, when we're done with this Congress, I'm going to have your name legally changed from W-O-N-G Wong to W-R-O-N-G Wrong. The Chief Justice assured me on Friday morning when he was here that come Monday morning there will be an Alex Wrong registered in Hong Kong. But a special mention to our flagship initiative, the Messages to Peace program, who helped with a contribution to this Congress, a very large contribution, which allowed us to do some extra things, but more importantly, allowed us to keep the participant fee as low as we possibly could. And Dr. Abdullah Fahad is here from the World Committee, who is one of the signatures. He's one of 3 people that approved that application. And Dr. Allah Fahad, if you would share with John Gagan of the World Scout Foundation, from the World Scout Foundation, who also signed that application, how much we appreciate the additional financial support. So would you please give me a huge round of applause for everyone that was invited or organized our World Scout Congress. The theme of our Congress, Scouting, Education for Life. What kind of education? What kind of life? That theme guided our discussions and our debates during the entire time that we're together. The first great achievement achieved in this Congress is the fact that so many passionate experts gather together to discuss education, which is the core of what we do. The conclusions of this Congress point the way forward for our engagement in education. Thanks to your contributions and their contributions and the work of the rapporteurs, we see the relevance of the current trends of our movement. These trends have been clustered around 4 themes: globalization, communication, society, and education. And each of them impacts the way that we deliver scouting. We need to rethink the way we operate. Engagement of formal education, role of digital engagement in scouting, and the design of our youth program. We need to clearly focus on delivering the life skills which are compatible with the requirements of the 21st century society. We have to promote diversity. We have to promote diversity to ensure that relevance of scouting is a globalized society. We have to reinforce scouting as a learning environment. We should empower our scouts to put their dreams into action in a partnership with adults, and I want to say that one more time. We should empower our scouts to put their dreams into action in partnership with adults. It's clear the Scout method provides solutions for many of these issues raised, but its implementation has to be constantly adjusted to the current societal context. Think about this for a minute. Just a little over 100 years ago, Baden-Powell wrote a book that created the movement. Imagine what you can do with the technology we have in our hands today through social media and other things. We have, ladies and gentlemen, the capacity to reach 100 million young people, if not more. If Baden-Powell can start a movement by writing a book, think what we can do with the technology we have today. This Congress was an important step for our movement. Our work must not stop here with the closing ceremony. Our work must not stop here with the closing ceremony. We will develop a report that we'll share with everyone. There was a resounding and very clear message from the various sessions that Scouting should not shy away from its contribution to leadership development in young people. And no one's trying to say that we need to create a bunch of Bill Gateses or members of parliament in some country. But we need to help young people have the initiative and the skills to do the right thing in various situations. A good example might be if a fire breaks out in a school, and a scout with leadership skills is the one that organizes the children and gets them out of the building safely. That's leadership. That's leadership development. Leadership is all about being better spouses, being better parents, being better employees, being better employers, and being better community leaders. And we have the capacity to help that along. You know, I'm wearing 2 hats in my role as Secretary General. Actually, tonight I'm wearing 3. Thank you. But I'm Secretary General of the World Organization of the Scout Movement, but I also serve as Chief Executive Officer of the World Scout Bureau. I promise you on this stage that I will urge the World Scout Committee to review the report that we make and consider the results of that report in depth when we meet in March and bring conclusions for consideration at the conference in Slovenia. And our chairman, Simon Ray, is sitting here tonight, and he agrees that that's what we will do. In my second role as Chief Executive Officer of the World Scout Bureau, I will also commit that the World Scout Bureau will give focused leadership. The World Scout Bureau staff will give focused leadership educational matters expressed at this Congress. I don't think we need to stop there, because it's just not the World Scout Committee or the World Scout Conference or the World Scout Bureau staff. We need you to do your part as well. Please don't go home and put the materials that you gathered here and the ideas that you have on the bookshelf or in a nice file in your file drawer. We'd like to have you put it to use. Put the things that you got from this conference in action. Don't wait. Don't wait. While the inspiration is still with you and the ideas are fresh in your mind, please, from here, start doing things immediately. And then share your success, because success builds more success. It's like a snowball. If you live in the part of the world that has snow, You know that when you build a snowball and you roll it along, it continually gets a little larger and a little larger and a little larger. You live in a part of the world that doesn't have snowballs, and you have swimming pools you can use all year round. You know, when you use a springboard, the diving board, to get up in the air to make your dive a little neater. So whatever part of the world you're from, whether it's snowball or springboard, we need to have you go to www.scout.org and share your success stories. Because with success stories, I can go to the people from the World Scout Foundation who will go to their friends and provide funding so we can do those things that we need to do. So take the ideas home while they're fresh, do something about it, don't sit on it, and share your stories on www.scout.org. You know, there's no doubt in my mind. I don't think the glare will affect anybody for the next minute or two. Get the hair out of my eyes. There's no doubt in my mind. I am absolutely certain that we will become the world's leading youth movement, enabling over 100 million young people to become active citizens, to inspire positive changes in their communities, and base all these achievements on shared values. No doubt in my mind. You have to help me with this. I'm not very good at it. By the way, I found out that if I was getting married tonight, this is the appropriate jacket. Red and gold are the good luck colors in China. You're pretty talented. Thank you. Take this. That campaign hat was so heavy, it feels like it's still on my head. You doing okay? Okay, you got the last cue card ready? Good. My name is Scott Tier. I am a scout. I'm a messenger in peace. And I am proud to be the Secretary General of a youth movement that continues and contributes to the education of young people. And I thank you for all that you do for that movement. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the evening.